Hello, and all right, now that we're connected. Hello, and welcome to tonight's Nanodegree Plus webcast for iOS, A&D, and FSND nanodegrees. My name is Martin McGovern, and I'm going to be your career advisor for the evening. We're going to be going over a lot of topics today, namely around what to expect as you enter into your job search. So please keep your mind open and keep your ears perked for lots of very interesting information about how to approach the job search in a way that will land you a job. At the end, we will address a number of the questions that were sent in during the sign-up survey. So please stick around for that at the end, and we will just jump right into it. First thing to know is, what will we be covering today? Well, for starters, we're going to be talking about what's next. Now what? Graduation. Here's the next thing on our list to do. And that big question, of course, is going to be, how does one get a job? It's a big question, and we're going to be digging into it today. We'll be talking about how to structure your nanodegree program, specifically what to expect in the next 6 months. We want to be able to address the 3 pillars of our job search. As you enter these next 6 months, you're really going to want to pay attention to these pillars. The first one is to be an active job seeker, to stand out through skill development, and to network. And what we mean by that is really to be an active job seeker. Most people who are out there applying for jobs are reactive in their approach, and I'm sure you've noticed that with all of the LinkedIn updates coming your way. And our goal throughout this entire presentation, if there's just one thing that you need to leave with, it's that you need to be proactive, not reactive in your search. And then we're going to talk about networking and why that is so important. This is going to be the piece that gets the most pushback. So we'll talk about that and how to overcome it. And then we'll also get into the Q&A along with next steps, and make sure we answer all of your questions at the end of the discussion. So again, thank you for joining us today. If you have more questions, you can always follow up. We'll be sending this presentation out afterward. You can always follow up with questions, and we'll be able to answer them for you one-on-one. You're about to graduate, or you just recently graduated, and now we have that big what question. Now what? It's time to start thinking about that search. Well, you might already have some ideas in mind. Maybe you've gotten jobs in the past, and we have some baselines to emulate off of. Maybe you've taken some time off, and we're not quite sure where to start. But there's a lot of ideas, I'm sure, floating around in your head. And what I'd like to do in this presentation is just help us organize those a bit so that we can start the search on a good foot. Our 6 months of support begin on the day of your graduation. So there's going to be a few changes that you'll notice as you move from into this post-grad piece of your search. The first thing is that your check-ins, your weekly check-ins, will become mandatory. The questions in these check-ins will also become much more specific around the requirements of the job guarantee. And we're also going to help you build a focused job search strategy. The main things that we want to do are support you in your applications, support you in building an approach to building a network, and support you in figuring out how to develop your skill set so that you can close that experience gap that everyone is so scared of as they go out and begin reaching out to companies. Now, all of these plans are going to have to be tailored slightly to your strengths. That's why we're going to be doing one-on-one calls, and you're going to be talking with me as well as other career support folks on the team, and we're going to figure out what it is that'll work for you the best. So how does one actually get a job? Well, this is The most asked question. And it's a tough one because there's lots and lots of different ways to get a job. But I will say the one thing that is consistent across all of these approaches is that the people who are getting jobs are the ones who are working the hardest and working the smartest in order to land those roles. Like I said, most people are reactive in their job search. So they do the easiest thing. They wait for LinkedIn or Indeed.com or one of these other websites to do the job search for them. They try and offload the work onto recruiters. They try and do everything except actually do the job search. And because they are pushing off the actual work, they're going to get worse results. So we don't want you to do that in your search. We want you to be an active job seeker, a top tier job seeker. We want you to be someone who challenges yourself the same way you did in your Nanodegree program to succeed and crush it with every lesson. Each thing that you learned in that process in your Nanodegree was a new skill that made you stronger. And every time you practice that skill, you got better. And now you have that skill for life. We want you to think of your job search in the same way because the job search is hard. And only the people who work at it and put in the time and put in the effort get the results they want. If you expect to have a job in 3 months, you better get cracking. Otherwise, it could go 6 months, 9 months, a year if you are just doing the bare minimum. And as you can see here by this graph, look at the number of applications here versus phone screenings. There's typically a 1 to 2% response rate for applications through online portals. They are quite a low return area to put your effort. And so you can see, almost 320 just for a handful of initial phone screens. And this is someone who's also out there networking. So you take away the networking aspect, and that initial phone screen almost drops to 0. So take a look at this and realize that this job search is no joke. This isn't a necessary evil. It is an actual skill set that you can develop and get better at over time. And you can see here, between the application and the final job offer, there's a significant drop-off. So along each one of these stages, you need to be staying on top of it, learning each one of these skills. How do I create a good application? How do I get an initial phone screen? How do I ace the technical interview? How do I complete a coding challenge? What is the thing? What is it about an on-site interview that will make me successful? And then how do I negotiate that job offer? Each piece along this route is a skill set that will help you throughout your life if you learn it. And I want to make very clear here that the key aspect of all of this is owning your job search. You need to say, I'm not going to wait for LinkedIn to find a job for me and send me the perfect thing via email. I'm going to go out and find a perfect job for myself. And that's where you start building a pipeline of applications. I mean, if you take a look at how a company hires, what they do is they create a job description, put it out there, collect hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications, and then sort through them to find the best person. We need to do the same thing for these companies. We need to say, what is the industry that I want to be in? Who are all the players in it? How can I talk to all of them and put them in my pipeline, and then whittle it down to the one that's the best fit? And in this process, you're going to get a lot of rejection. Now, not all of that rejection is going to be someone telling you that you've been rejected, although I think that's quite nice when the company will let us know that. But typically, it's going to be silence. And that's going to be one of the most frustrating parts of the entire search, is just the long periods of silence and waiting and patience that you're going to need throughout this process. So reach out to us, use us as a sounding board when you need it. But just go in knowing that this is going to be a game of patience as well as activity. Whenever you find yourself waiting, I recommend you take more action and try and talk to people rather than sitting around wondering what's going to happen next. The more you put out there, the more you will learn and be able to adjust and improve. If you're not doing the activities that you need to do, you won't get enough feedback to know how to improve. So, this is a huge part. Anytime that you're not getting the responses or the feedback that you expected to get, we need to take a step back, reevaluate what you're working on, and try and figure out how to improve it. So, if you've spent 3 months sending out 5 applications a week and you haven't gotten any responses, I expect you to come to the next call saying, I haven't gotten responses. Here's the new thing that I'm going to go test. Not, I haven't gotten responses. I guess I'll just keep doing this forever. Because that's what that cliche quote. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and hoping to get a different result. Well, we know what works and we know what doesn't. And so if you focus on the right things, you will find success. And while this is on you and we want you to own your job search, we are here to help. So when you do hit those rocky moments, please reach out and let us know. All right, next up, what is this going to actually look like for you? What is the structure? Well, some of you may have already gotten an email with the new terms, and we're going to address that in just a bit. But for those of you who enrolled prior to April 5th, you're going to fall under the original terms. And we recommend that you do the work listed in the new terms, but of course, you're not held to it according to the terms. So for those who enrolled prior to the 5th, here are the terms that you're actually held to in accordance to the job guarantee. The current participation requirements say that you should complete your onboarding survey and schedule an onboarding call with me after graduation. Some of you have already done that. Some of you will be getting an email in the next week explaining how to do that. So if you didn't get an email today, they go out every Wednesday. So just keep an eye out and let me know if you don't get it by next Wednesday. Then you're going to submit 3 applications per week and track these applications. You're going to, and I want to pause real quick, that tracking piece is extremely important because we are going to review your spreadsheet where you've been tracking all your applications at the midpoint check-in. So if you haven't been tracking, you won't get to have that check-in. So please be sure to track all of your job applications. You also want to respond to communications from the careers team within 72 hours, including weekly check-in surveys, career support opportunities, and interest in hiring partner jobs. Now, these outreaches tend to include things like mock interviews, advisory calls with recruiters, and so on. So you really want to be opening and reading and responding to these, and we have a 72-hour window for any outreach. You also want to schedule a tracker review call at the 2-month mark if you have not yet landed a job. And again, I want to go back to that tracker piece. If you haven't been tracking your jobs in a spreadsheet or Hire Pool or wherever you might be doing it between now and that 2-month mark, well, we won't be able to have that call because there won't be anything to review. So please, please, please be tracking everything from the beginning. And also, you must have at least 1 year of U.S. work authorization by the time of graduation from the ND Plus program. Now, I want to reiterate that if we get to the halfway point and you've not gotten an offer, you will get requested to set up a tracker call where we'll go into detail around your job search activities. I need you to have that tracker sheet ready so that we can go through and see what types of roles you're applying to and how we can best adjust to move forward. All right, this is a whole lot of info coming your way, but we just want to be clear on the terms of service so that you know what is expected of you. But of course, this is the minimum, and we've seen that in order to actually land a job, you're going to have to go a little bit above and beyond. So what is the above and beyond? Well, as mentioned, we recently updated our terms to increase our chances of success. This is based on our best performing students, and those are typically the students who get jobs within 6 months of the program. We took a look at their activities and we realized something very common among all of them. And the common thing amongst all the people that end up getting jobs is that they did the work. They didn't wait for someone else to find the job for them. They didn't try to push the job search onto someone else. They went out and they met people and networked and were active and put in the time and effort to get the job they wanted. So we revised what our support could look like and expanded on these original 3 terms with these 3 pillars. When these 3 areas are done on a regular basis, we see a huge spike in student success. We list. Um, we'll get into them here in a second, and we'll go into them in much more detail in the coming slides. But I just want to say, if you are only doing the minimum, just expect minimum results from your job search. And so when we chat, if you're saying there's not enough opportunities out there, there's not any people to meet, there's all sorts of excuses that everyone has in the job search, myself included. No worries. It's a natural thing that we all experience because it is a frustrating search, as I pointed out on the earlier slide. But frustration is not a bad thing. It's actually something to overcome. And the way that you overcome frustration is by being an active job seeker. You own your search. You don't wait for LinkedIn to send you an email. You go to LinkedIn and find the companies you want and start building connections within them. You don't sit back saying, I don't have enough experience. What do I do? You stand up and you say, here's what I'm going to build, and here are the places I'm going to volunteer, and here's the work I'm going to do to close that skills gap. And you're not going to say, it's weird to network, I don't want to do it. You're going to actually go out there, volunteer for meetups, and reach out to people directly and set up coffees in order to learn about the industry and how you can break in. Because if we don't talk to real people, we'll never find our way into the role that we want. So let's talk about what being an active job seeker is. Well, we found that the previous minimum of 3 applications per week, it really just wasn't enough. Sending out 3 applications a week, you're going to be searching for 6 months to a year minimum, because the response rate, as I've said before, for applying through the online portals is about 2 to 3% at best. I just talked to 3 students today who all they've been doing is sending in their applications, and they are sending about 5 a day. And they've been sending 5 a day for 2 months and found that they only got 3 callbacks. 5 a day for 2 months and only got 3 callbacks. Well, it just goes to show that the portals are losing their effectiveness, right? There are lots and lots and lots of people competing for those spots, and there's a lot of filtering technology that is keeping your resume from getting in front of a real person. So if you're going to go that route, which you do to some extent have to use it, it's not all for naught. But if you're going to use it, you definitely need to raise that requirement a small bit. And we moved it from 3 to 5 per week. Just 1 a day for the business, for a business week. So if you can get 1 application out per day, that should be the bare minimum in order to be an active job seeker. We also took a look at this and realized that, the bigger your pipeline, the more applications you have, the more opportunities there are. You can't have, if you don't put yourself out there and put yourself in front of people, well, those are opportunities that just won't ever exist. So if we stay at home learning and we do something which I like to call productive procrastination, if we spend all day tweaking our resume and creating projects and doing all these things, instead of trying to get in front of people and talk to them about the problems that you can help solve at their company, well, then we're being productive, but we're actually procrastinating the real things that will get you the job. If at the 2-month mark you have your own, and in addition to this, you also want to be tracking your applications. This is a requirement of the program. And if we get to the midpoint mark, and I've said this a couple times already, and you don't have that together, it's going to cause you to lose your eligibility for the program. So please, please, please track everything you're doing. And this isn't just for our record keeping. Tracking your job search is extremely important for your own ability to follow up on opportunities. That's another area we see a lot of students fall off. They have that first initial meeting, then they maybe send the first follow-up saying, thank you, it was great meeting you, and then they never respond again. Well, the job search is a lot about persistence. So being an active job seeker, you're going to say, I'm going to follow up the day of, I'm going to follow up a week later, I'm going to follow up 2 weeks after that and 4 weeks after that, and I'm going to stay in touch until they tell me no. That's what an active job seeker does. We have a few recommended ways that you can track your search. You can use Hirepool. You can use Google Spreadsheets. I think Google Sheets is the best way to do it. Easiest to share, easiest for us to get into the details. But Hirepool is another option. There's all sorts of different ways that you can track it out there. Just make sure we're able to see it and you're able to share it. Don't track it in your email. That's the, I guess, the one big takeaway. A lot of folks will say, well, it's in my email. And then they'll have to spend a year going through all their emails trying to piece out all the information. And the nice thing about tracking everything is you get to see it all in one spot and see what's working, what's not. If you've been applying to the same roles over and over again and you're not getting any traction, but then you start getting traction with a slightly different job title, well, now you see that you should be moving in that direction. Tracking allows you to learn and grow and adapt in your search and see where you're stuck, as well as reach out for help when you need it. And I'll talk here a little bit about Jason. He was working at Beckman Coulter as a data scientist. One thing that we realized, that he realized, is that he just hadn't been applying for enough jobs. So the best advice he got was to apply to as many positions as possible. And he was actually meeting the minimum, 5 per week. But when he increased it to 20, he started actually seeing results. And he took the approach of applying to a broad set of jobs. Now, again, there is no one-size-fits-all approach to a job search, but there are certain things that help as you go through this. For him, it was quantity. He wanted the quantity of applications. For other folks, if they have a much more specific approach, it's going to be the higher quality of maybe a few less applications, but more in-person networking. We're going to find the balance that works for you as we do our one-on-ones. All right, next up, how do you stand out with skill development and get your application materials together? So the first thing you want to know is that you have to have a baseline of application materials. And that's going to include your resume, your CV, and your LinkedIn. Now, each one of these is slightly different and serves a bit of a different purpose depending on what you're trying to accomplish. The first one, when it comes to your resume, you never want it to be more than a page, because this is really a one-page sales sheet that highlights the pieces of your history that are most relevant for the job that you hope to land. You want to show this relevancy and then tie it to the company. And the best way to do that is by being able to tell stories about the projects that you've worked on. So each bullet, if you think about it, could be a teaser trailer for a story you're going to tell. And the way that you can break out each bullet in your resume is by saying, I developed this feature using this technology that led to a specific outcome for the user or the company. So for instance, I developed I developed a sorting feature using a certain API that allowed users to filter and save their search queries, right? That's something I can picture in my head, and you can get technical on the one side and tell the end of that story by inserting the outcomes on the other. And so you use this one-page sales sheet to get your foot in the door, and then even before doing that, you might want to think about creating a CV. Now, this is a 2 to 3 page historical document. Some companies request this, but not as many as everyone wants a resume. Not everyone wants a CV because they tend to be very long. And typically, a hiring manager won't read past a page. So that's why the CV is a bit more of something for yourself. And if you want to think about it as a master resume. This is where you can brain dump everything that you've created and done and worked on in your past. Academic background, research, awards, publications, presentations, etc. This is going to be the place where you can kind of put it all down, and then when you are customizing your resume for different roles, you can pull from it, put it in there, and send it off real quick. And then finally, your LinkedIn. Now, your LinkedIn, you can start by copying over your resume into LinkedIn, but that's only going to do part of the job. The LinkedIn is really a place that allows you to put detail and provide valuable information. So you want to be making sure that you're utilizing keywords, and you want to err on the side of adding more detail. So talk about what the company did, talk about the projects you worked on, talk about your contribution to those projects. Include links in the media section. There's a whole section where you can include links to your GitHub or to the project or to a YouTube video where you're walking them through your build. These are all really amazing things that you can do that makes your profile stronger and stand apart. So be sure to get out to get these baseline materials together and get out there. All right, now we're going to get into that second pillar, standing out through skill development. These are the application materials you have to get together. And one of the things that we get asked all the time is, how do we stand out against the competition? Well, the best way to do this is through continued skill development. You want to allow your resume and application materials to be robust and up to date. So we just talked about all the materials that you can update and get really good and strong, but what do you actually put in them? Well, the more you do, the more you stand out. The less you do, the less you stand out. It's as easy as that. So if you're sitting at home thinking about creating projects and you're not actually creating anything and updating your resume and your LinkedIn, well, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. But if you are sitting at home saying, all right, here's the skills that I want to learn, here's the open source projects I'm going to contribute to, or here's the skills that I want to learn, here's the volunteer organization I'm going to help, the nonprofit, the professional organization, whatever it may be, you want to be getting out there and helping people. Some of it might have to be for free so that you can boost your experience gap, right? They say if you get feedback that you don't have any real world experience, go volunteer for a nonprofit, get that real world experience, and then come back and say, hey, I've got that experience now. Let's get started and start building your products out, right? You want to keep your skills fresh and your GitHub active. A lot of our students come from different backgrounds, and that's why this piece is so important. It goes everywhere from just having these baseline marketing materials all the way through having like a really robust online brand, which could include a blog or a YouTube channel or a podcast or something like that, and everything in between. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to showcase your skills and allow people to see what you can do. And this is especially important for anyone who wants to work remote. If you want to work remote, a company needs to be able to see your personality and believe that you're going to be a consistent contributor to their team. So having consistent blog updates shows that you're consistently able to deliver updates to the team. But if you don't have consistent blog updates and you're trying to work remote, maybe you only post once every few weeks or you don't even have a blog, how are they going to know that you're able to follow through on the job if they've never gotten to meet you? So that's why there's kind of a little bit of a push right now for video resumes and stuff, although that's been happening all throughout history. But there's just all these different ways to really stand out. And the key thing that you're going to want to keep up to really keep up and stay on point with is your GitHub. You need to be completing a minimum average of 6 GitHub commits per week, resulting in at least 1 published application or website throughout the term of the program. So be sure to be on top of that. And it'll keep your GitHub up fresh, and that is going to be the place where employers look. So really do take what you're learning in this program and think to yourself, how can I apply these ideas to the real world? These things really help during interviews as well, because it gives you things to talk about. If all you're doing every day is, applying to jobs, you're gonna have fewer things to talk about after a few weeks of doing that. So you want to be working on some sort of project at all times in order to be able to, when they say, well, what are you doing right now? First, start talking about your project, and then talk about how you're using that to find jobs in the industry that you're building that project for. So maybe you have a real strong interest in the finance industry. Build a cryptocurrency, app that tracks changes over time or something like that. And then you can go talk to a bunch of people about cryptocurrencies and have some really great conversations that, who knows, may lead to a job. And this is where we'll touch on Christopher. Christopher is an iOS grad, and he's working at eShow. His whole goal was to create as many projects as possible to demonstrate his skill set. And so I get the question a lot. I get the question of saying, Should I create one really big project that showcases everything I do, or a lot of really small projects? Um, it's a tough question. It depends on what that big project might be, but chances are a lot of small projects will beat out one big project any day. Because if you set your sights on one big project, it might take you 3 months to finish it. And then if you take 3 months to finish it, in those 3 months, you lose out on all the opportunities to be posting things and sharing things and getting projects out there and talking about different ideas with different people. So maybe break it up, find a bunch of little things that you can do over time, and then use the culmination of all of them in order to sort of get out there and build your and promote yourself, basically. Now let's take a look here at a few different people's GitHub. I'm just gonna be quiet for a second and let you look at it. Who do you think is more attractive to a company? Yeah, it's the third one. It's pretty simple. Not a tough question. 68 contributions in the last year versus 2,867. I mean, it's almost not even a competition. It just shows that one person really, really enjoys what they do and wants to learn and is curious and is constantly out there building. And the other person, could take it or leave it. And if you're someone who could take it or leave it, you're probably not going to put the effort into the job. And so employers will sense that and they'll start questioning whether or not, you're someone who really cares about this stuff or if you're just there for the paycheck. And it's important to think about this in all the different things that you do. If you do want to start a blog, consistency is important, especially during the window of your job search. You don't have to create a blog that has like hundreds of thousands of followers, but you do have to create something that in the time that you're seeking a job, you can showcase your ideas and your skill set and the way that you think about problem solving, which is really the biggest piece in all of this. All right, so back to the pillars of support. Last but certainly not least, we have networking. This is where we get the most resistance, but it's also the best way to get ahead of the competition and develop connections within companies. Everyone who's job seeking, no matter what their background is, feels like they're one in a stack of resumes. And the reason for that is because you are. You are actually not even one in a stack of resumes because companies are trying to save on, they've all gone green and they don't print things out anymore. So now you're just a data bit in a computer, a 1 and a 0 that is likely caught in their network, stuck behind some sort of a wall and not being seen by any real people. Now that's unfortunate, and that's the reason that there's a 2 to 3% or less response rate from all the different websites out there. But what can you do? I mean, we have to still apply for jobs, right? Well, so every time you apply for a job, what you should be doing is reaching out to at least 3 people that work in that company. We recommend that you establish meaningful connections with an average of 3 relevant industry professionals each week via email, LinkedIn, Twitter, or however it is that you want to get in touch with them. Now, that should be easy to do because, look, we've already talked about it. You're applying to at least 3 to 5 roles per week, right? So that's 3 to 5 companies. All right. So then you go to the company page, you look at their employees, you look at employees who are doing the work that you want to do, and you reach out to 3 employees at each one of those companies. All right. You've suddenly got yourself 15 contacts to reach out to. Maybe you meet up with 3 of them, and then you've got ins at those companies that you're trying to get in at. So, it's really important to set yourself apart and become a face, not a resume. If you hide behind the computer and you hide behind your resume and you hide behind LinkedIn and Indeed, people just don't know who you are and you're going to be overlooked. And so we can't even take it personally because we're not attaching our face to it. We're just sending information out to these black holes of the internet and crossing our fingers that something happens. It's just unfortunately not how it works. What ends up happening is we have to send it out and then we have to go seek out someone. And then we have to have them log in and literally pull our name out of the system. Otherwise, just think about Twitter. If you tweet, it just gets lost in the stream, right? And so same thing with a job application. You just get lost in the stream. And so networking is the most important piece of your job search in order to get pulled out of the stream and start talking to people. And when you do reach out to people, it's important to think about them before you. Most ways that people reach out, they say, hey, I want a job doing this. I want to work at a company that's collaborative. I want to have a mentor. I want to work at a company that's going to foster my education. And they just keep saying I. If you look at your cover letter and every paragraph starts with the word I, with the letter I guess, you're probably approaching the job search incorrectly. What you need to be doing is saying, who are they? Who are they? What are they working on? And how can I help them? Because that's what a job is. There's a problem that needs to be solved. They have money, you have time. They give you money, you spend time solving that problem, everyone's happy. But if you walk in saying, give me, without addressing how you're bringing value to the company and to the person that you're talking to, well, then it sounds like you're just telling them to give you money and you don't care about the problem at all. You have to care about the problem. And so you can call this a people first approach. You can call this a problem first approach. You can call this a value based approach to the job search. But really, it's rooted in understanding that every person that you talk to has something they're struggling with. Every company has something they're struggling with because every company wants to grow. And so if we want them to grow, we have to help solve problems and allow them to grow. So we have to dig a little bit. We have to figure out, what is it that they're struggling with? What is it that they need help with? How can I help them? And the only way to do that is by talking to people. You can't figure that out at home. It's not in the job description. So you have to take the next step and you have to start reaching out to people and you have to say, all right, how can I figure this out? What are they excited about? What are they working on? How can I help them? You can begin with Udacity alumni, recruiters, developers, informational interviews. These are all really great places to get started and to start getting comfortable. And the key thing here is that, it is a little daunting to reach out to people and it might come across as fake. But if you change your mindset a little bit and you don't think about it as networking so much as just trying to nerd out and have great conversations with people about the things that they are excited about building, it really does change the mentality. So you say, hey, what are you excited about? And someone starts telling you about this cool app they're working on. Well, now you've got a great conversation. There's nothing weird about that. And then when they, express frustration about the app and how they can't seem to fix this one thing, you can say, well, I'd be happy to help you out with that if you do need help. And suddenly you're bringing value to the table and you're someone who helps regardless of whether there's a job description. You're just a helpful person who brings value to the network that you're in. And you can see this with Dominic. I mean, he was an MLND grad. He's now working at Solution Street as a full stack developer. And if he had to start the whole search over again, he said he would just start reaching out to people. His background was as a restaurant manager, as I said, and he was really resistant. We pushed him to network forever. After 6 months, he had still done no networking. And a lot of you might fall into this trap if you don't get started and really sit down and confront that bit of fear and find a way to overcome it and find a way to start reaching out to people. We'll be talking 6 months from now about why you didn't network more. And so what happened with Dominic was he came to that realization and he said, all right, I get it. I finally get it. There's no more waiting here. I need to do something about this. And he started networking. And within 3 months of beginning his networking approach, he got a job. So 6 months without networking, no job. 3 months with networking, a job. So that's what makes all the difference. And, we're going to harp on this in every conversation that we have together because no matter how much I say this, a lot of you still won't do it. And so what I'm really pushing for and what I really hope that we're going to leave this conversation keeping in mind is how important networking is. Hence why there's a second slide. Networking is the most important piece because these are the real conversations. Not only does it help you figure out who are the people in this industry that can help you, but it also helps you figure out what is happening in the industry. Sitting at home reading blogs is great, but it's not going to give you that real-time understanding of what's happening at all these different companies. If you meet 5 people from 5 different companies in the fintech space, you're going to be more knowledgeable than the next person you meet when you walk in that room, because you've got 5 perspectives in your head where they only have one. And so this is a really, really important thing, not just for finding opportunities, but also crushing it once you get to the interview, because you don't want the interview to be the first time you're sitting down with someone and talking about your work and talking about the industry. You want to be practicing asking questions, improvising in conversation, and you want to do it with very low risk. And a coffee with someone is very low risk, whereas a resume is very high risk because it's very hard to get. So if you reach out to people in a very calm and nice way, and you say, hey, it looks like you're doing some interesting things in your industry, would you be open to grabbing coffee? And then you just sit down with them, have a great conversation about their goals and the things they're excited about and the things they're struggling with and the ways in which you can help. You'll find that you're going to start bringing so much value to people that that value is going to come right back around and jobs will start opening up. There's also going to be a lot of questions around how do I reach out to these people. One way you can do it is you can go on LinkedIn and send in mails. Another way you can do it is go on LinkedIn, find all these people, and then find their email on a website called www.findthat.email. And there's lots of other websites just like it out there that help you do searches for email addresses. But the key thing is you need to be reaching out to people. One thing that doesn't work, oddly enough, is connecting with people on LinkedIn. If you send a connection request, what you're doing is saying, all I want to do is connect with you. So the person accepts the connection request. And typically, if they're a stranger, they will only do one thing for you if they don't know who you are. So if you send a connection request, they'll accept it and say, I did my one thing, and they'll move on, and you'll never really have a good conversation with them. But if the first thing that you send them is, hey, can we get coffee? Well, you're buying them coffee at the very least. So you're providing some value. You're providing a good conversation, which is always a good time. You're helping them get out of the office a little bit for the day, which no one really wants to object to. Everyone wants some fresh air, you know? And then at the end of that conversation, you say, well, that was a good conversation. Should we connect on LinkedIn? And now they want to connect with you because you're someone in the industry who's up and coming. And, you know, although this might be their opportunity to help you because they're more senior, who knows what the future holds? You might be able to help them get a job. And so everyone out there is trying to build their network. You just need to tap into it. And I want to talk about Felix. And you know, Felix published an article and he was talking about all the challenges he had about going from, you know, doing a boot camp to landing a job. And you know, his keynote that he was able to go from 0% response rates to a 22% response rate just by emailing CEOs and CTOs directly. He decided one day that, you know, he was just going to send out 150 plus emails. All the other stuff didn't matter. It was just about how can I talk to people? How can I connect with people? And he found that even CEOs and CTOs would sit down with him and talk about their businesses because that's their job. Their job is to find interesting people who are excited and curious. And so if you reach out and you're excited and you're curious and you want to learn, then you are going to be able to sit down with these people. But if you reach out and all you say is, hey, I want a job, here's my resume, let me know what you think. Well, what you're actually doing is giving someone homework. You don't want to give people homework. You want to reach out to people and be interested in what they're doing and be excited to help. So again, this goes back to the idea that the job search isn't really about you at the end of the day. You can take some of the pressure off your back. It's about them. It's about their issues. It's about how the company needs to grow. And it's about how your skill set that you just learned through your Nanodegree program is going to help them succeed. Networking is the combination of everything. Without it, everything else is just going to drag. So please, please, please take these words to heart and network as soon and as often as possible. If you live in a remote area, try and network online. Try and set up phone calls and video calls or join forums or open source projects. Think outside the box. We need to start thinking about the job search less as a necessary evil and more as a skill set that we're developing for the rest of our career. You are likely going to have many jobs over the course of your career. It's better to learn it now and get it right and practice than to always be struggling with these skill sets. And we're here to help, so please reach out with questions. I'm here to share ideas and help you get through it. All right, it's the Q&A time. We'll dive in here a little bit and talk about some of the mindsets of behind these questions and the outcomes from them. But of course, when we share out this presentation, feel free to ask more questions or ask for more detail where needed. So, get your pen ready and write things down. All right. How do you decide if a job posting is something you're qualified for? Well, this is a tough one because everyone's qualifications are different, and every manager that hires has a different expectation of what they want to hire for. But two things I'll say. The first one is that job descriptions are typically written idealistically, not practically. There is no job description that would say, we want someone who has zero experience. Because just imagine being the person that writes that and presents it to their boss. Hey, I'd like to hire someone for our team that we're going to spend money on, and I want them to have no experience. No one would ever make that argument. So the boss would say, no, we want someone with 2 to 3 years experience minimum. All right. So then they're going to post that online. And then everyone who doesn't have 2 to 3 years experience is going to say, well, that's a catch-22. How can I get experience if I need 2 to 3 years experience to do this junior role? I'm going in circles here. Well, if you qualify and you feel confident that you could complete 60% to 75% of the things listed in that job description, it's worth reaching out to, in my opinion. So, when you're looking at these things, realize that these are aspirational job descriptions and that no one fits them perfectly. Absolutely no one. So, and if you do fit it perfectly, you should probably be trying to level up a level. You're probably going too low. And so you should always be striving and saying, hey, I can do most of this. Which things, and then when you talk to them, you can say, which things are, how would you prioritize these skill sets? Like, is it better to know Python or is it better to know something else? Like how would you prioritize these pieces? What sort of response rate should I expect? I started to apply and I don't get much response, either positive or negative. He just gets no response. Yeah, that's typical. The responses that you'll get most are just silence. You'll get a lot of form emails saying we went with another candidate. And then you'll get some nice personalized stuff. If you are personal, they will be personal back. But the response rate you should expect about a 2 to 3% response rate for online applications through the online portals like Indeed and LinkedIn. And you should expect a 25% response rate to your outreach emails to get coffee with people. And yeah, and the more you do on a skill development side of things and posting updates and showcasing what you can do, the higher your responses will be, because your response rate will be, because people can Google you and figure out, oh, this person is really interesting. They're not just a mystery person on the internet who's trying to get some of my time. So definitely build those skills. Some of my friends were required to write hand code onto a whiteboard during their interviews. What should I expect to encounter? Well, this does happen, and the key thing to remember here is that they're trying to figure out how you think. So even if you get it wrong, as long as you are spending a lot of time explaining to them why you made the decisions that led you to that wrong answer, and then go home that night and fix it and send them an explanation of how you fixed it and why your way of problem solving can lead to the right answer, that's the most important piece. So I would say, there's a lot of things that, there's a lot of unexpected things that happen in the job search. You might think you're going in for behavioral and get a technical, things get mixed up all the time. Things to keep in mind, though, is that they care more about how you socialize with the team, how you think and communicate, and then how you solve the problem. Because if you are a brilliant person who can solve problems, but you're a terrible person to work with, they're not going to hire you. But if you are a competent person who can solve problems and get along with the team, you're going to have a leg up. And so be able to communicate how you got to the answer, not just get to the answer right away. When submitting my resume to a potential employer, should I include a portfolio of the apps I built in an attachment so they can be run or reference my GitHub, check themselves? Yeah. So you should be including your portfolio in maybe at the top of your resume in your a website link, a link to your personal website that has your portfolio. You should be adding media to your LinkedIn profile so that people can click through and see the things that you've built. You should definitely link to your GitHub, and your resume. If what you're asking is about submitting, only submit what they require in the job application or what they ask for, right? So if they ask for a resume, don't try and jam more stuff in there. Just give them the resume, but the resume should link off to the things you want, like a PDF with hyperlinks. So put the resume in there. If they want a cover letter, put a cover letter in there. If they ask for links to your GitHub and LinkedIn, add all that in as well. The job description wants skills I don't feel strong in. Should I add them? It depends. It depends. Can you talk about them? Can you talk about how quickly you could get up to speed if they needed you to do that? And how much experience do you have with those different skill sets? So I would say if you don't know how to talk about something and you don't know how you would quickly get up to speed, if it would take you a month or more to get up to speed, probably don't add them. But do keep in mind that on LinkedIn especially, they search for keywords. And so if there's a certain keyword, or if there's something that you're in the process of learning, you can include that. And when they ask about it, say, I'm in the process of learning that, and here's the project that I'm working on. Interviewers often ask, what is your preferred salary? Is there a way that I can appropriately determine the right salary range? Yes. You can go on, just type in salaries. I believe PayScale, and there's another one, I think salary.com potentially. I always get the names mixed up. But there's tons and tons of sites out there that give you salary. I think even LinkedIn Premium will give you some salary numbers. Typically, those are a little bit inflated, but it's a good starting point. And then what you can do is you can go actually talk to people, again, back to networking. Talk to people who have the job you wish you had, and ask them what was the range when they started. Don't ask them what their current salary is, because that's a little strange, but ask them what the range was when they started and what it was like to negotiate. Ask them for negotiation advice, and you might be able to glean some better ideas of what your city pays for certain roles. Do I need to start looking for a job right away, or can I take a week off? My vote on this one is do not take time off, because momentum is your friend. If you take a break, you lose momentum, and then you start behind the starting line when you come back, because you have to get back in the groove. You have to shake off the vacation. You have to refocus your mind. You have to relearn things that you forgot in your week off. It's just, it puts a lot more, let's say, weight in your shoes. You're not going to be running fresh, and you're not going to be as quick. You're just going to be a little bit of a slog coming back from a week off. So I do not recommend taking a week off. I recommend getting straight into your search, but everyone has needs and different lifestyles. And so if you have to do that, just put a plan together of how you're going to get back into the groove of things when you come back, so a week doesn't turn into a month. What is the extent of the introductions that Udacity Career Services will be able to make with potential employers? We have a list of hiring partners that we work with, and those hiring partners get updated lists of students at various intervals, and it's on the employers to reach out to the students. We do not make introductions of students to employers. We just provide the information and the profiles and let the employers reach out to students. So the best thing you can do in this case is, one, take a look at all the websites that the employers, take a look at our list of partner companies, and see what opportunities they have on their websites and start reaching out, because they know about the Nanodegree and they know the value of it. And so they will understand when you apply the value of your education. But then the other thing is get your profiles in order. Go make sure your LinkedIn is good. Go make sure your resume is good, because this is what those companies will be looking at in order to reach out to you. So if you haven't put together a good LinkedIn yet, or let's say you don't even have one posted, you're definitely not going to get reached out to by the hiring partners. So while we don't necessarily connect students to hiring partners directly, we don't make an introduction email or anything like that, we do have indirect ways in which the hiring partners see students and give them the opportunity to reach out when they have roles available. And then finally, we have created lots of profiles: Udacity's profile, LinkedIn, GitHub, resume. Which profile should be given more attention? This is a really tough one. And my background is in marketing, so a lot of this, a lot of what we're talking about today is just putting marketing tactics to our job search. And so you're right. There are a lot of profiles. These are only even just a few of them. You probably have a built-in profile at some point, depending on what city you're in, or an angel list profile, depending on what city you're in. You might have to create profiles on different company websites. You might have a personal blog that you have to keep updated. You know, there's all sorts of things, a personal portfolio. There are all sorts of profiles. A couple key things to keep in mind here is you want them all to interlink with one another. So you want to put your LinkedIn URL on your GitHub, and you want to put your Udacity or your resume on your LinkedIn and things like that. Because then Google will start saying, oh, this is all the same person, and start making you come up higher in the search results. But the other thing that you want to do is know where you feel the strongest. So I would say, according to a recent study that I read, GitHub is becoming the place that most employers go first to see your activity and to see your background and stuff. Then they go to LinkedIn, then they go to your resume. So that might be a good way to prioritize it, or your personal website and your GitHub, and then your LinkedIn and your resume. And so, you know, a lot of people use Twitter to find jobs. A lot of people, you know, find different ways to get out there and create profiles. But the key thing is, whatever profiles you do use, try and keep them fresh. Don't let them get stale during your job search. You know, after your job search, it's up to you what you do with it. But you want to make sure that an employer doesn't land on your GitHub and it has no activity for the past 4 weeks. That's the hard part. So there's a lot of different things that you can be doing. What you choose is a bit more personal preference, but I will say that LinkedIn and GitHub are probably the most used things for recruiters and for hiring managers at companies. All right, finally, our next steps. A little bit of homework, nothing crazy. We want to be sure that you're going to take the survey. We'll be sending an email after this, and that's also going to include a link to this video. So open it up, rewatch this video, take the survey. We send those out every Wednesday to new grads. So, you know, some of you may have gotten it today, some maybe will get it next week. Keep an eye out for it. There's a little bit of a delay usually, but it is coming your way. The email will include the survey, a job search plan document, and that job search plan document is going to be required for our onboarding call. So be sure to fill that out and send a link to me with the document so that we can review it. And you need to set up that meeting in the next 2 weeks. It doesn't have to be scheduled for the next 2 weeks. It just has, it has to be scheduled, but it doesn't have to take place. So it could take place 3 weeks from now, as long as it's been scheduled in the next 2 weeks. You'll also be invited to the Slack community, and once you join that, you'll get a chance to connect with our other students and alumni. Please, please, please take advantage of that. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at career-support@udacity.com. I appreciate you taking the time. I look forward to helping you with your search. Thank you so much for joining tonight's webinar, and have a wonderful evening, everybody. I will talk with you all soon.